Open an Indian comic book today, and you'll likely see this image: Rani Lakshmibai, a fierce warrior queen, swords drawn, charging into battle with her infant. But look at modern academic research, like this paper here. It explains that in the official British colonial archives, you won't find that heroic figure. Instead, authorities maintained meticulous military logs that deliberately omitted her contributions or dismissed her as a, quote, horrible Rani. To piece together the real person behind the legend, historians have to step outside those highly biased colonial ledgers. They have to rely on what is called a subaltern archive, the indigenous oral traditions, folk songs, and local memories of the colonized. Reconstructing her life becomes an active battle against historical erasure. It requires looking closely at how a marginalized culture preserved the memory of a leader the British Empire tried desperately to delete. This hand-tinted photograph shows the Ghats of Varanasi. It's here, around 1828, that she was born as Manikarnika. For a typical girl in 19th century India, life was rigidly confined to the household, miles away from the public sphere. Her upbringing, however, defied expectations. Raised among nobles, she was educated alongside boys. She learned to ride, shoot, and as you see here, master swordsmanship. By 14, she married the Rajat of Jhansi and took the name Lakshmibai. With her new royal title came the traditional expectation of purdah, strict seclusion from public view. Behind that veil of conventional royalty, the tactical skills and physical discipline she developed as a child remained completely intact, waiting for the moment they would be needed. That moment arrived in 1853. When her husband died, the East India Company refused to recognize their adopted son as the legitimate heir to the throne. They invoked a legal loophole called the Doctrine of Lapse. This statue depicts Marquis Dalhousie, the British Governor-General, who used this exact policy to aggressively absorb ownerless states like Jhansi directly into British territory. When widespread rebellion against the East India Company erupted in 1857, Lakshmibai was forced to act. She dropped the royal seclusion entirely to take public administration of her state. Facing a severe shortage of troops, she organized the local women. She actively encouraged them to leave their households and form a volunteer female army to defend the city walls. Shattering those deep-rooted societal norms doubled her available workforce. It was a highly practical, brilliant military calculation designed to hold off the approaching British forces. When the British finally laid siege to the city in March 1858, they faced formidable architecture. As this text notes, Jhansi was renowned as the strongest fortress in India, with solid granite walls up to 20 feet thick. Looking at the layout, the fort was protected by a deep moat and 10 distinct gates. The British quickly realized their only viable angle of attack was placing breaching batteries on a rocky knoll directly to the south. For 17 straight days, shot and shell poured into the city, but the defenders met them with continuous, heavy return fire from the towers above. Inside the fort, Lakshmibai managed the chaotic logistics of survival. She set up foundries to cast new cannons, secured massive stockpiles of roasted grain, and deployed her newly formed female units to carry ammunition directly into the line of fire. The official British correspondents sometimes tried to paint her as an irrelevant figurehead. Her relentless, hands-on command during those 17 days proved she was actually a master tactician holding an empire at bay. When the fortress walls were ultimately breached, she strapped her young son to her back and made a daring escape through the British lines in the dead of night. She rode to link up with additional rebel forces, eventually taking control of Gwalior. This 19th century photograph captures the towering stone walls of the Gwalior fort, where she prepared for a final defense. At Kotaki Sarai in June 1858, she rode into battle wearing the cropped hair and uniform of a male cavalry officer. As recorded in these historical accounts, she fought fiercely until she was fatally struck by a carbine shot. General Hugh Rose, the commander who had spent months hunting her across the region, would later write in his official report that she was the most dangerous of all the Indian leaders. Her death gave the British military the tactical victory they needed, but by dying on the battlefield instead of surrendering, she secured a mythic status that bullets couldn't erase. While colonial authorities packed up their ledgers and declared the rebellion crushed, local villagers and storytellers immediately began overwriting the official record with songs and ballads praising her courage. Decades later, literature cemented this legacy. You can read here how Subhadra Kumari Chauhan's famous poem, Jhansi Ki Rani, explicitly painted her as a warrior queen, ensuring her memory endured in the minds of a new generation. That cultural memory directly fueled the next wave of the independence movement. In 1943, Subhash Chandra Bose, seen here, named the Indian National Army's all-women regiment entirely in her honor. The archives of the victors tried to reduce her to a footnote or a villain, but through the sheer force of art and shared memory, a colonized people ensured that a 19th-century queen remained the eternal symbol of Indian defiance.